Hello, welcome to Signal Noise Podcast. My name is Brian Lamar at Aura Rocket. I'm your co-host with Andrew DeSillis. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Brian. How are you today?
Doing great. Hot, middle of the summer. Dog days. Is this a dog days? Is what they call it? Dog days of summer?
It's 90
Yeah.
degrees, so
Yeah. Joining us today, I'm real excited. Angela Chavez Rueda, who is a manager of insights at Dig Insights. Angela, hello. How are you?
Hi, doing good. How are you
Yeah.
guys?
Is it hot where you are?
It is. I just had to check the temperature and it's 90 degrees here in Chicago. So it
You're in
would
Chicago.
would be a perfect like day today.
like, 90 in Chicago is an Indiana 100. That is blazing.
Yes.
City.
Yeah. Yeah, my AC is working overtime and even then it still feels too warm in my apartment.
Yeah. Are you from Chicago?
I'm not. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in Dunwoody and moved up here.
Dunwoody.
Yeah, I moved up here after graduating from the MMR program.
90 degrees with a lake breeze, not much humidity. This is easy for you coming from Georgia.
I've gotten too used to Chicago weather. That 90 degrees now feels a little extreme, and I'm actually starting to, I don't know, be a little scared of the hot temperatures. When I went back to Georgia, I think it was in March. It was a little warm, and I did not like it anymore. What once was my norm was like is now the most horrific weather to me.
Well, we wanted to have you on because we noticed that you are a speaker at the upcoming Future of Insights Summit. That's in August in Athens, Georgia. It is brought to you by the Masters of Market Research Program, which you're a graduate of. Congratulations. And the Insights Association chapter. And I will also be there. And I love going back to school. So love to kind of get to know you, what you're speaking about, and what people might learn if they're at the conference or on this podcast when you can learn something. So yeah, have you spoken at a conference before?
I haven't, so this will be my first ever
Okay.
conference presentation, and I'm super excited. It feels like such a good place to kick it off.
Well, you're on home turf and a friendly crowd. And I think they do this most Future of Insight summits that they get some recent graduates to kind of speak. And I love that. Give opportunities early in the career for people to speak. A lot of times, I never spoke at a conference till I was probably 20 years into my career. And you kind of lose that muscle. Like I had to rethink how to public speak because you'll speak in front of maybe a team meeting, but when's the last time you speak in front of 30 to 150 people? Not very often early in your career. So that's what a great opportunity. So yeah, tell us, what your topic is and what you're going to be speaking about.
Yeah, so my topic is learning research in a rapidly changing world. So it really dives into going back 3 years when I first started my career. What was research like? What did I think it was going to be like going into this field? And then layering on my experiences from year 1, year 2, transitioning from an analyst to a manager, but also layering in technology. Dig Insights is a really tech-focused company, and we're trying to become tech forward, really, like, that's our aim, to be known as a tech forward company. And so layering on technology and AI and adding that layer in and how does that affect our work systems, our research processes, my role as a researcher, how does technology and AI affect that as well? So kind of diving deep into that or as deep as I can get with 15 minutes.
Right.
And yeah, and just trying to share a little bit of what I've been seeing. I went to Quirk's earlier this year's Quirk Chicago in April, and I saw a lot of stuff that, I've been hearing chatters about throughout the company, but to see it like put out in the world was super awesome, super cool and insightful.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start with you kind of highlighted what you've done at Dig Insights. Can you talk a little bit more about in the last 3 years your kind of career progression and what you've been doing and what you're doing today?
Yeah, so I started off as an analyst. That was June 2023. Hard to believe it's been 3 years already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started off as an analyst, more of a supporting role to my managers and directors on our team. Doing the basic research, writing questionnaires, running analyses, preparing reports, and all the fun stuff. And I still love to do that. But now as a manager, I'm more involved with the client, way more into the reporting phase as well, trying to come up with a great story. How are we able to transform the data into insightful research and something that's gonna have impact later on? So that was kinda like one of the biggest changes as transitioning from analyst to managers, kinda leaving behind the little tasks and diving further and way, way deeper into the research.
First, I'd like to ask a Georgia related question.
Yeah.
How prepared were you for that role when you kind of entered Dig Insights? But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, totally. I felt pretty prepared coming into my
Yeah.
role here at Dig. I think the MMR program gave me a great foundation. I knew like a little bit about everything. They tried to tell us about the different methodologies, different tools we can use. But then Dig also kind of has their own thing that they do. So for one example, in the MMR program, we learn how to run like a turf by hand or conjoint by hand. Coming into Dig, I have not done that at all. I just
Yeah,
send
of course.
the analytics team and call it a day, and then they send it back a couple days later, and it's
Yeah, you'll
perfect.
never do those by hand ever again.
I
Um,
probably don't remember how to do them.
I think it's great foundation. We did t-tests and regressions by hand, and what it's such a great foundational thing to be able to do that and understand how behind the scenes. And in my opinion, that's the advantage that I think Georgia graduates have entering the marketplace. And not only that, and as an analyst, most analysts probably don't have that background. We're so used to tools and things doing so you can do a stat test really quickly online now. You don't even know what's behind it, but you can kind of interpret it. And I think that foundation of understanding how it's built statistically is such an advantage for you, and that should help you throughout your career. And you'll probably always reference that. I reference things that I did, and I was there in 1999 to age me, and I still reference things that I learned doing those t-tests and regressions by hand. And I remember thinking back then, like, why are we doing this by hand? But now I'm like so appreciative that we did that. So hopefully, I'm sure you'll appreciate it too.
Yeah, totally, yeah, even when clients have questions about, like, what is this? I have a little bit of understanding, or I had a little bit of understanding, now it's a bit more, obviously, so it's just really great 'cause, especially, like, on a client call, just quickly drop it into the chat if stuff is happening on the background, yeah, it's just great to know these things and know what I'm doing really, even if I'm not the one doing the analyses, I just know what is happening.
I can imagine. Your topic is trying to keep up learning research in a constantly changing world, and I'm thinking about what you probably went through with high school, college, and grad school. COVID was in the middle of this as well, so
Yeah.
your changing world is very you probably well not unique for people your age, but unique to people in our industry. And I'd
Mhm.
love to are you speaking about that as well, like challenges that you faced even prior to entering Dig Insights and kind of the challenges you faced throughout college and grad school and now entering the marketplace and the world has really changed for you?
Yeah, I kinda touch on that in the beginning. I believe it was perhaps my senior year or going into the MMR program that ChatGPT was, like, becoming a buzzword and, like, AI chats, and I didn't really utilize them until I graduated and got to Dig because Dig had their own open-end analysis tool that we would use for open-end responses, so that's really when I started to use, ChatGPT and chats and AI really in my work. Back then, back in college, I was still a little, like, hesitant towards it. Not that perhaps I didn't trust it to some degree, but it was just such a new concept of just dropping in a file and getting a response in, like, 20 seconds. That was, like, unheard of. Usually it takes hours of Google searches and deep diving on Wikipedia and all that good stuff. So, yeah, there is a bit of hesitation earlier on, but now I've completely adapted, and I'm just trying to keep up with all that keeps coming out. It feels like every day there's a new tool that's being brought out, or even Dig is optimizing our Dig One platform, home of our agile solution testing. Feels like every day they're dropping in a new function that makes analyses and our work much easier, which is it's great, but also a little overwhelming at times because we have to learn something new.
Yeah, how do you balance the learning with the doing? Because that's something that I personally struggle with is
Yeah.
that, you know, it could be a full-time job just keeping up with the new AI tools. And even if you only have one, right? Like the updates are like every week now, not every quarter. So how do you balance that? Do you have set time aside to learn about new tools and methodologies, to experiment with them? Is this something you're doing like late at night, early in the morning? How does that work?
Yeah. A lot of it happens in during my downtime during the workday, just because 'cause I'm already, like, in the system. We have a really great resource page. We call it the hub, our knowledge hub. It houses articles about everything Dig has ever done, everything Dig is working on, and I kinda just go down a rabbit hole. What was it? I was looking up something last night, I can't remember anymore, but I found one article, and then within the article, I found another article, and then within that, I found, like, 3 more that I, like, just opened the tab and kept it saved because I was like, "Okay, when I have some time, I'll just go read on this really quickly." And that's kinda how my learning process goes. I think of something, I'm like, "Oh, like, have they updated our turf platform or anything? Let me go look up the page on the website because usually that's what they update first." So that's kinda how my learning happens. And for like our AI chat tool that we have on Dig One, that's mostly just like I would say using it is how I learn best, trying to and it's in its early stages, and so they want us to play with it and kinda help fix any bugs and stuff like that, and that's kind of exciting too to be part of the process, to have some input in what the company is doing on a larger scale, so it's a lot, but yeah, during my downtime, I just go crazy.
Is that kind of learning downtime, is that something that Dig as an organization protects for you? Is that something that you have to prioritize? How does that work? I know because for many of us, like for me, you say downtime, and I'm like, what downtime? I don't know what you're talking about. And I imagine that you don't really have any either because you work in marketing research. So how are you finding kind of the
Yeah.
time? Yeah,
I
yeah,
call downtime anytime I'm waiting for a response
yeah.
or I've sent something off and I just haven't told anyone just yet that I'm done with something.
Right.
That's my downtime. Or it's like 4 PM. I'm like, I don't want to start a new task, but just in case someone has a question, let me stay online. But what do I do in that hour until 5 PM? Let me go or kind of
You're gonna go
search
learn.
something up or play with the chat or something. So that's kind of what it happens. And Dig is really great about announcing these changes. They have like little pop-ups on the Dig One platform. It's like what's new on the platform, and it'll summarize it super quickly and have links readily available for us to click on. They'll announce it during our weekly team meetings, or they'll put some training sessions on the calendar. So they're really on top of making sure that we understand what Dig's doing and how to use the tools that Dig is working on as well.
So you've really had to switch from learning academically, right? You were
Mhm.
literally in a master's program,
Yeah.
uh, a famously rigorous and intensive program, and well deservedly for all the everyone who I've met who's come out of it knows a ton of market research. But you've had to switch from this academic learning to a learning by doing, it sounds like, right? Dig is letting you know what's new, and then you have to kind of figure it out, or you're jumping in process. But it's not as if there's a weekly Dig Academy where someone's teaching you in the same way that you were used to learning. What's that shift been like for you?
Yeah, it's a lot of taking accountability for myself because you never know when I mean, we're always selling these new things and ideas and tools to our clients. And so the thought is if we win a project that involves these new tools, well, I want to be aware of them and I want to know how to use them so that I'm not struggling later on, or if it's early on in the process, that I'm not struggling at any point. So that's kind of one aspect is just to be able to execute the work that we're promising our clients. I have on my OneNote, I have like a tab that's called like random notes, and I just write down random stuff that I've learned, or I'm like, oh, this would be great to remember later on. I don't have a good filing system just yet, but I know it exists in that OneNote, and if I need to reference it, I'll go find it much quicker than trying to find it, like, on the hub or asking someone because that also can take a while.
So tell us a little bit more about your presentation specifically that you're going to be giving at the summit coming up.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's broken down into well, I've broken it down into like three parts. One starts off kind of at the beginning of my career, what I was prepared for, what I thought was going to be like, and kind of the expectations set up for me, and I've set up for myself as well. And it kind of ends on, okay, I've come to dig and learn what dig does, and then that transforms how I think. So it goes from just being like a market researcher that does the work, but it becomes more of a consultant role to where we're working towards the end goal of impact and bringing it to life. And like I mentioned before, dig is really tech focused, so that also was another like surprise that came on early on was the emphasis on technology and integrating that with research and strategic thinking. So it really transformed my mindset those first couple of months at Dig rather than just like doing the work. It's more than just doing the research. It's way more than that. And then the second year kind of or the second chapter, sorry, kind of builds on, okay, I know what I need to do. Know my role at Dig. Now I need to understand the business more, the clients, the need of the clients and how to execute on that. And then that kind of layers onto the third chapter where it's heavily focused on technology and AI and how have I adapted to that. So it's like the first two chapters are like the foundation and the third chapter it's like, okay, what has evolved, what has changed? What am I learning? What am I still learning? What is Dig coming out with that I am also seeing out in the real world too, not just in our Dig world, but out in other businesses that are trying to do as well. So not trying to keep it just at my company level, but stuff that's happening outside as well.
First off, I'm impressed that you already have clearly, if not a completed presentation already, it's close to completed because I barely have an outline on mine. I'm curious what your thoughts are. This is honestly kind of a little bit of a challenging conference to present to, not to
Mhm.
make you nervous, because you're going to have, I don't know, 25 current students in the room, and you're going to have your former professors and all the academia, University of Georgia, and then you're gonna have researchers that are gonna range from your level and maybe even more entry level than you to people like me that have been in the industry for 30 years. And
Mhm.
so for me, customizing my presentation and learnings particularly is a little bit challenging sometimes because I don't want to speak too high where I lose the class members, the current class, or too deep or too high where I lose the people that are like my peers and people that I've known, like my former classmates and things like that. Did you consider that when you're putting this together, or am I just making you nervous for no reason?
No, totally. That was something that I keep thinking about, and my presentation isn't fully done, but I have like every section has or like the slide has a note on it that I'm like, okay, I want this here, this here, this here. It's just about
Yeah,
actually prettying it up, I guess is the word.
yeah,
The thoughts are there. But that really was something I thought about because I'm like, I don't want to explain market research to people who know market research better than me. But I also don't want to like scare off any of the newcomers and making it too technical and like too
yeah,
not advanced, but yeah, just more too specific or something like that. That's something I
yeah,
took into account. And looking at the topics at this conference as well as other conferences, AI is the focus. So I'm like, I just don't want to be another. Let's talk about AI. I want to
yeah.
make
Good,
relevant to myself and perhaps other people too.
good instinct because I've been to a few conferences this year. Andrew has as well, and we are just being so inundated with AI, AI, AI. And yes, AI is involved in everything we do, but what you're doing is foundational research, you know? You're doing you mentioned turf analyses multiple times, and so yeah, that's what you're bringing. I think is very relevant for even people like me who's more senior and understands marketing research. Very interested in your topic. I think it's kind of fascinating to see your progression and what you've learned and how you apply it and things like that. Especially things didn't change that much, you know, when I first entered
Yeah.
the industry, you're going and people newer to research are going through a ton. So yeah, I think it's very, very relevant and I wouldn't worry about it from your perspective at all.
There's a very interesting thing that can happen from your presentation, and I don't mean to steal your thunder. This is like the whole thing. But it occurs to me that those folks who've been in this space for 25, 30, 35 years, and they hold these senior positions, they're in leadership of their firms, so on and so forth. like it's incredibly important to learn about your early career educational experience, right? Because you're basically giving presentation on what it was like to go from fresh grad to now, and you obviously you're excelling, you've been promoted, you're now client facing, like all this kind of stuff. And so being able to say, here's my experience and here's how I learned, so that others can then take that experience, improve it, apply it in their organizations, right? It sounds like Dig is doing a fantastic job of this. So there's a lot to be gleaned from looking at it as the current student looking ahead, as well as the senior leader who's trying to figure out, like, how do we onboard people successfully? How do we
Mhm.
teach them our way? Where are the gaps between what was learned theoretically and then never doing another turf analysis by hand and dropping an Excel into Fable 5 and having it crunch the whole thing in an hour and $10,000 worth of credit? I think it's really cool, and I certainly don't want that like commercial value of what you're talking about to be lost, because I think it's really critical from a business perspective as well. And you could present it at other conferences, not just this one.
Yeah, that's kinda what I was hoping for, to everyone walk away with something learned, like you said, like the newcomers, like, this is maybe what you can expect. Obviously, the new technology that I was experiencing is already established for you guys, but maybe the things that I did or the processes that I took or what my company was doing, maybe that's something they can take with themselves and to the company that they're going to and suggest that to them as well. Yeah, that totally makes sense, and not to, like, promote dig or anything, but yeah, they're doing a great job of training us and making sure that we understand, and that's, like, a really good place to be right now because 'cause they're really open about what they're working on, and that's something I appreciate because I just don't wanna open, like, our Dig One platform and have 10 new features that I had no idea were ever going to get launched. They've told us beforehand, they've kind of explained the thought processes behind them, so it just makes it even more rewarding? I don't know if that's the right
Well,
word.
I'd love to hear more about the Dig One platform. From what little I know about it, it sounds very sophisticated, forecasting, has lots of different features in it. So number one, I'd love to hear about it. Number two, that since you're in it a lot,
Yeah.
can you be involved in the innovation of the platform? Being newer to the organization and newer to research, that would be seems like a really cool opportunity for someone. So I'd love to hear more about it and what your experience is with it.
Yeah, so Dig One, it was previously just Upside, our agile testing engine. You know, we program our survey, we used Audience Marketplace to field surveys, but now it has evolved to include One Click, our social insights engine. How it works is you type in a topic, say you want to understand how Gen Z feels about mac and cheese, and I'll, like, scan through websites, scan through social media posts, Reddit, Instagram, anything I can find, and bring forward the most relevant links and quotes and anything you're looking for that might align with the topic that you're looking for. So that those 2 together are now Dig One. But yeah, with I'll refer to as Upside, the survey part, there's a function where in the chat bot, we can drop in suggestions for new features. When I first joined, it was pretty basic, I would call it. The type of questions we could use, it was like grid or select, open, and now we have list open ends. We have a much more sophisticated logic function and routing where we bring in the screener questions now, where previously we couldn't, and we had to put a new question in the survey itself. Something as simple as duplicating questions is now being worked on, where
Yeah.
that something that we've been asking for forever because it's just so much easier. Stuff like that, it comes from us. They kind of ask us, "What do we need?" or "What have they been hearing about constantly?" So, we're all pretty involved in making Upside a better place.
No, that sounds really cool. What a great opportunity for you, I think.
Yeah, and shipping software is so interesting. How much more complicated it might be to create a duplicate question button than you
Yeah.
think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been asking it since day 1, like, I asked someone, I was like, "Why can't we duplicate the questions?" They're like, "I don't know."
Yeah, that's we have an in-house software team here at Market Once as well, and that's something that has definitely been a really cool capability for me to have to say like, "Hey, look, it would be amazing if we could do this." And I've also sometimes volunteered, sometimes been voluntold to help with particular, like, kind of little task forces,
Yeah.
in understanding everything that goes into it. Wow, it's really cool. So that's great that they collect that feedback and act
Yeah.
on it, and that's definitely a plus to have at the organization where you work. This is probably going to be a generic question with way too much build up, but it occurs to me. So you graduated in May of 2023, is that correct?
Yes.
So you sort of have a very, very unique time frame as far as the acceleration of AI entering the workforce, especially in market research, where you were like aware of AI while you were in school. ChatGPT
Mhm.
was out, there were some other tools. It could write poetry, it could do okay research. I'm sure like so part one of the question is like, were you using it and were they talking about it while you were still in school? And then the second part being, this really all just kind of exploded and went crazy like a year ago, maybe, which
Mhm.
seems crazy to say only a year ago because I feel like there's been a step change every 90 days for the last 7 months. And it almost feels like it's all this year. But what has it been like for you early on in your career to have to learn how to do all this stuff while artificial intelligence is kind of exploding, right? Because like Brian and I have a different experience where we kind of figured out like marketing research first, and then now we have to keep up with AI. You're kind of like
Mhm.
having to do both at the same time, but that also makes you more AI native.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I really even asked the question. It's just such an interesting time to me where like the people who are graduating, who just graduated a few months ago, like I'm
Mhm.
sure they were using Claude during their capstone projects, right? So you have a very interesting perspective here that I would love to hear more about.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned, it was, like, maybe senior year and the program where it kinda took off and very hesitant to use it, and even starting my job, a little hesitant to use it too. Obviously, I used our I forgot the name of it now, just because I haven't used it in forever. I use ChatGPT now, but our open-end analysis OTAP, that's what we called it. I was like,
Yeah.
"It's an acronym." That's what we had before, and it was pretty slow, honestly. It took forever to run analyses,
Yeah.
to pull, like, keywords and themes and summaries. I was like, "I can just read these by hand." I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so it would take, I think when I first joined, maybe an hour or 2, and then it got better to around 15 minutes or so within a couple of months, maybe. Um, so that was kinda like my first introduction to these kinds of tools where it was like, they're still kinda slow, they're still a little clunky, they're not perfect yet, like you mentioned. It can write poetry, but it can't really run that great of research just yet. And I was, like, seeing that with my open ends, like, I don't know, it pulled the most generic themes ever, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, we can add a bit more substance to this, you know?" And then, yeah, it just kind of exploded. I wanna say 6 months ago, maybe a bit more, our company got a, I think it's a license to ChatGPT so now we can use it. It's like it can, reference our articles from the hub and stuff like that. So we were really encouraged to use it as a tool to help our research because it can easily pull. And now, like I mentioned, Dig on Dig One has their own AI chat where it can reference the surveys you worked on. You just put in the project number and it'll pull up all the information about that project without even having to say the name of the project, really. You just type in 5 numbers and there it is. So it's so quick, but it also doesn't feel that quick to me because I've just been seeing it every day, really. Every day I'll open ChatGPT to ask something, I don't know, does this slide look pretty? Does it the placement of pictures make sense, stuff like that, where it's like a second nature to just open that tab up. So seeing its progression within my company doesn't surprise me that much anymore. I think at the beginning it was a little like, oh, like we're actually using these tools and we're okay to put like our findings in here. It was a little bit of hesitation, but now it's like no thoughts, just ChatGPT.
The only other question I have is really around, have you been back to Athens since you graduated, and what are you looking forward to in going back? Is it a presentation? Is it seeing some old classmates? Is it an instructor? Is it a bar? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I haven't been back since I graduated just because I
Yeah,
moved to Chicago right after, and whenever I've been home for the holidays, kinda just tend to stay in Atlanta
yeah.
and see my family as much as I can. But yeah, I'm super excited. A couple of my former classmates will be there, so it'll be great for us to get back together in Athens. The last time it was in Atlanta, last year's conference, we saw each other, but this time we'll be back where it all started.
Uh,
That'll be super exciting. And I'm excited to go to the last resort. My coworker and I are already making plans about when we can fit that into our schedule. So yeah,
the
super
last
excited.
resort existed when I was there. That bar has been there for a very long time. That's amazing. I didn't know it still existed. Yeah, I'm super excited to go there. Excited for the content. The content is always good, and it's nice to go back to your alma mater and see your former classmates and see the types of things that the next generation of researchers are learning and doing. It's kind of inspiring for me at my point in my career to see how smart and how secure we are, and people like you entering our industry and taking it over after all the mistakes we've made in our generation and all the things we've broken that you all are gonna be in charge of fixing. But really nice to see you. Looking forward to see you. That's August 12th and 13th in Athens, Georgia, at the Future of Insight Summit. And I'm looking forward to your presentation and excited about it. So thanks again.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you guys for having me.